Well, here I am with Stonewall Jackson's Way, Cedar Mountain. It's all set up. Delayed a day and a half, I don't know. I tried to start it this morning. I just couldn't get in the swing of it. Things. I'm going to give it another shot. Not a matter of I didn't move anything or anything. I just kind of looked at the scenario and said, I don't know if I can handle this. So this one's going to last 3 turns, and it's this special little area of the turn record track to handle this. So that's great. I'm going to have to dig out things like the movement track counter and stuff. I've got the units set up. This is Jackson halting the Army of Virginia's movement towards the Orange Courthouse, Gordonsville, and Charlottesville, culminating in Cedar Mountain. We've played the tactical battle of Cedar Mountain. You only use South Mount, 3 turns. On turn 1, nobody can do an extended march, i.e. their fatigue levels have to stop at 2 for marching. No unit can participate in a core assault action if its fatigue reaches 3 or 4 as a result of trying to participate, not of any damage from it if that's an issue. Units may reach a fatigue level of 3 or 4 only due to combat or cav retreat without suffering any penalty. Neither unit can force march, neither player. The Union player may not perform any actions or entrench with rickets. I don't know where the hell he is. He's over here. Okay. For the entire game, Gregg and Lawton's Confederates may not enter a hex whose first 2 digits number 09 or more, or 24 or less on their last 2 digits. Who is this? Gregg and Lawton. Gregg and Lawton are here. 09 or more would be and last 2 numbers are 24 or less. So they basically are going to be stuck down here. I'm not sure where the 24 is. It's somewhere in this region. They're not going to be pushing north, but they can help cover, I guess. Not that supply matters. Confederate gets victory points for the following: 8 points for Culpeper, 14-18 at the end of the game. And I should probably put a little objective marker there. There are some. That's up here. I think there were. There we go. I don't know if that's what they're meant for this scenario, but I haven't seen a rule for them or anything. If Confederate infantry are not at Culpeper at the end of the game, determine the distance in hexes from Culpeper to the hex closest to Culpeper currently occupied by Confederate infantry. If more than one hex is equidistant, only one is counted, and that'll give you a number of victory points for the Confederate player, ranging from 5 down to nothing. For each point of Union manpower lost in combat, retreat or cav retreat, but not extended march, force march, or moving from zones of control, is worth 1 victory point for the Confederates. Likewise, manpower points lost to the Confederates or take 1 point away. If the Union player lost less than 2 points of manpower due to combat, retreat, and cavalry in the entire game, there's a -2. So, if you took Culpeper and the Union just retreated, you would still get a Confederate substantial victory. Great. So as far as I'm concerned, we have our goal. It's to get here. Ricketts can't do anything, right? And that's about it. And Gregg and Lawton aren't going to be charging forward. Now we have to try to parse the map and figure out what's going on. And this is where it's getting tough for me. Because, you know, I had enough trouble with Lee versus Grant, which I've played several times in my life. Similar system, but different graphics, different feel, different circumstances. I'm like I am with the Zucker games. I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I want to start. You know, it's not like Yeah, when I sit down to a tactical game, it's usually like, okay, I'm just going to try doing this, and it works, and it's easy. This, I feel like I can't do that. Operational games, I never feel like I can just push the pieces around and things work. And if they are going to be of that nature, they're going to be the simpler operational games, you know, like the old AH classics or whatever. These make me feel completely AP. It looks like we're going to be able to dive right in, which of course is my fear. Random events phase doesn't happen. Reinforcements, leader transfer, I don't think there's anything of that nature going on. Yes, I could move Jackson. Or likewise Pope. Or Banks. Oh, what do those numbers mean? Shit, I don't remember. This is 5-4. Those are two different tactical values. Jackson's got a 5 attack and a 4 defense. What does the 6 mean? That's his command value, which is for core attacks, I believe. But it may also be for movement, for core movement. Trying to remember these things. Oh shit, I can't remember the damn thing. I just read these fucking rules. Activate core leader. You take a core. You select one or more military units. Your movement allowance. You roll a die. Increase it by 1. Okay. So Union Corps get a die plus 1. Union Infantry. Okay, they just get dice. So I'm trying to figure out what the command value means. Because we have, it's artillery on regular units. So command just has to do with the core assault. Okay, and now we contemplate terrain. We don't know who's going to go first, right? I haven't rolled yet. But we're looking for something. Terrain affects artillery value. Just trying to fucking figure out if I can make any sense out of this. Like, I know most of the roles, but I'm having a lot of trouble parsing it together. Why can't I attack across a bridge? Well, here we go, because a bridge or ford gives the defender roll bonuses. What about attacks? Not listed here. So it's the defender who gets modifiers from this. Doesn't look like there's any multipliers except for that. So, I don't know. You know, let me peek. He's got 1 strength point here. I should be able to blow through that. I'm not sure I want to move that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is going to be hard to move through. Fuck me. I don't know. Okay, well, let's see who gets an initiative. Confederates get the initiative. They can either pass, which would be a good way to start losing the game, or move forward. I'm going to move, in this case, AP Hill. Hill gets a die, and we got to look. I don't think there's a place on here where they give movement rules. I know the rules. Here's what I don't have. Add 1 for the Confederate infantry. That's all I'm missing. And it is in there. So I get a 7. Okay, pike. And this is, you know, pikes cost 1. No big shock there. But I thought they might be less. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm across a bridge. Bridge has no effect on movement. Really? Okay. This isn't a bridge. This is a bridge and a ford, isn't it? I don't know. What does a bridge look like? A bridge looks like a little bridge. So this is a ford with a road going across it. So ford costs nothing extra. It does have a combat effect. So I moved, I had 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 2 left. All right. Really don't want to do a column of route. I could spend 2 for a normal attack, get the crossing. Sure. Why not? So I spend the 2 extra movement points to make the attack. This is cav. Screw me. I made it up there. The cav probably wants to blow some of my movement points. They're not going to be able to stand there, so that's going to be a cav retreat. So we'll look up the rules on cav retreat. Separated by a bridge or ford, that's +2. However, it's -2 for a combined combat value of exactly 1. And it's not less than 1. So what were we at? We're at even. So the cav, extra roll. They got a 2. That's a 1's the bad thing, I think, or a 0 or something. Now I have to retreat. It's halved, so that's 1. So I killed 1 movement point there. And I must retreat 4 hexes. My fatigue is increased by 2. We'll fall back to there. We get a fatigue marker, and this is what I'm not going to like. I can guarantee you it. It's all these fatigue markers. Now I'm going to put them on top of the units because otherwise I'm not going to know anything, right? But see, in Lee versus Grant, you flip a unit over, it's used, you don't go back to it. Here, I've got these fatigue markers, I've got to recover them, I've got all kind of balancing to think about, and that becomes kind of problematic. Okay, so that ford doesn't cost me anything. I only have 1 movement point left. I'm going to push him across, and I get 1 point of fatigue. Unfortunately, fatigue markers are like in Lee versus Grant's. What are they? There's markers that go on top of units, and I don't remember what they are, but they were all over the place. It's not clear who's what. So I'm going to have to do this if I'm going to have them on top. If I don't have them on top, I know nothing about what's going on, right? I've got this stupid yellow counter somewhere buried on things. All right, that was the first action. And now I'm fatigued. So I'm going to break for a bit. And like I said, these games are always rough for me to approach, even though I kind of know the whole sequence for it. Actually getting down and moving the pieces around is really a big deal for me. Given that I moved a piece yesterday, and that was the extent of my activity. But let's take a look at what the situation reflects, because honestly, I'm trying to learn the feel for this, even though I'm not putting a lot of effort in. So we pushed our way across the rapid, and our goal is Culpeper. That's really the only goal for this scenario now. We got to hold it at the end. We can't just grab it. But we want to get there. And we don't want to diddle around trying to push all these cav. These are, other 1 point cav units around. We don't particularly want to, like send Yule up that way or something like that. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're going to try to push as far and as many pieces as we can. Now, Greg and Lawton have restrictions. So I think we want to get them moving first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We probably should have tried them as our first move to see if we could get across this ford with them, because the casualties kind of don't matter. So yeah. Anyway, we roll and see who gets to go first. This time it's a Union move. I got no idea. Union needs to get more forces forward. There aren't a lot of choices for actions, right? I mean, just making sure, because this shit is not sticking in my brain. March, core, burn, core assault. Oh, can I move a core? Banks' second corps. It might make sense to gather as much force as possible down in the Culpeper area and make it harder for the Confederates to actually take it, because I don't see, or a little south of it down in Cedar Grove or whatever, I don't see any particular reason there's not for fancy maneuvers or something like that in this particular scenario. Okay, so let's look at our, so we have a command value. That's not our range. I don't remember what leader's range is for core. Jesus. Within the command radius, see 2.5. What the fuck, command radius? So that's going to be 3 or less hexes. So I could move Banks and Augur. Let's make sure that's not restricted. I know there's some movement restrictions in this scenario. And again, you know, I don't know why these cause me so much trouble. Ricketts is the one I can't use. No extended marches, nothing like that. Okay, so I'm going to try to move these to get as many of my forces into place as possible. And maybe I should have done that with Jackson, trying to move his whole corps at once. But I didn't really understand the situation too well. Anyway, corps leadership. Let me flip back the rolls. Make sure that we understand it. I believe it's just a die roll. Again, this should be in here. There's quite a bit here. March allowance and march action corps leader. Roll a die and add 1 for Union corps leaders. But we got to make sure we understand it. That's the base movement for the entire force. Sounds good. So moving the corps, we're going to get 6 movement points, and we put that on the corps leadership movement. We only have 2 units. Look at this moving first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got to get me a fatigue marker for that. We'll have another move later, but this is all we're allowed to move right now. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll join them at Culpeper. There's not really a stacking limitation, but there's an amount of strength points that can be combined. And that's part of Second Corps as well, but it was outside of range. So that's the second activation we did. Pretty exciting. And just to get you caught up, hey, it's flowing along at a good pace. This is actually a really easy to play scenario, but my mental block, right? First Corps took 2 corps actions to fatigue 2. That's as far as it can go. They still got the potential to move Second Corps again and get myself into a location. I got to be careful though. If I stand here, I can entrench at Culpeper, which might be worthwhile. And a couple of Confederate units are pushing up. I definitely would have rather shoved everything at once, and of course, I bumped a piece. Oh, in this small scenario, initiative's feeling a little better. The Union's been winning a lot of initiative die rolls, which is unlikely because the Confederates win ties, right? I got, Second Corps deeper down here. I'm leaving Crawford up here to entrench. Last line of defense back at Culpeper. Do I really want to do that? I don't know. I might need the troops there, but I'm always worried about on outflanks and stuff like that. In this system, I'm not terribly comfortable with how quickly, how easily you can slide up and do something. Like in Lee versus Grant, in the campaign game, there's all this, wow, you're really going to have a hard time getting there. Here, it doesn't really feel like movement's as difficult. Anyway, I brought a bunch of cav down, though, to screen the Union positions so that the Confederates are going to have a harder time pushing straight forward this way. And movement's pretty cheap, like I'm crossing these fords and everything. That's just one movement point. It's not an additional movement point. Fords don't actually cost you anything, if I'm correct. Yeah, no effect. So that's pretty sweet. So I'm able to slide units around pretty quickly. This is not probably where he wants to be, but it's not a terrible place. The only problem with these cav is some of them are kind of tiny, and so, as we saw, they probably won't have that big a movement effect. Buford over here has a larger cav force, which is more troubling, but of course, sliding up this way is harder. Note, clear hexes cost you 3 movement points to move into, right? If you're not moving along the roads, you're going to be paying a lot of expense to move. So that's something to keep in mind. There are tons of roads all over this map. They make it seem really easy to deal with certain terrain factors, etc. But the base terrain is not pleasant to walk through. Again, something I kind of like because it covers, it takes road movement into effect in a more abstracted way in some ways than like, oh yeah, I've got to get into march column, that cost me a movement point, and now I can't move next to people and everything. It just kind of makes it a little easier. All right. Interesting situation. This is a situation you try to get yourself in Lee versus Grant, right? Hey, Confederates have all kind of activations left. Union has used up most of their units. Got some cav I can fire off. And remember, when cav retreats, it gets fatigued pretty badly. So these guys moved already, so I think they'll get fatigued badly enough that they won't be able to be used as screens even particularly well. Anyway, Confederates win the initiative. If they pass here, the Union is certainly going to pass, so we don't want to do that. But the question is, do I want to move a set of units at once? I don't think I particularly want to. So I think I'm going to move from the back first and try to clear out things that are in the back. I don't think I'm going to get an attack on this space. I don't know what Pope's got with him. It's really not much. 4 strength points. So if one of my big units gets to get through the cav to there, I might be able to brush him out of the way and make my way towards Culpeper. Forgot Lawton and Gregg's restrictions. I knew they had to kind of stay down here, but they couldn't go past this line. One of them ended up here. Hey, I cheated. It was to my disadvantage. They've both run up here. I don't know how much they can do from there, but I probably should have been in here earlier. That way maybe I could punch my way through, to that side. Sometimes you make screw-ups, though, and something like this, it's pretty easy. If you're familiar with the Cedar Mountain campaign, there were mistakes on both sides and issues on both sides, and a play mistake, even a rules error, can probably be justified within those parameters. Okay, now here, and it's really hard to see because everything's just fatigue markers everywhere. I got some Confederate cavalry running into Baird's cav. All right, I have used up 3 of my movement points. I'm down to 4. I've got 7 on my total, which isn't very good. I'm not getting the best movement allowance here. Now, cav retreat, I believe, can only be used against infantry, yes. So he can't, try to screen cav versus cav. So we get a fight going here. Now, I've got 4 movement points left. If I take this hex with an advance, that cost me 1 movement point. So I've got 3 left to attack these 2 hexes. That's the way I'm looking at it, because I want to brush both these aside. Then I can move my big force forward and maybe knock Pope out of the way if I'm lucky, because he has a smaller force than I do. All right. For this, I have to find the attack summary. So, unfortunately, a hasty attack cost me 2 movement points. A normal attack's 4. So I'm going to have to do a hasty attack here. This is the more important of the 2 attacks. This one, if I can't brush him aside, well, maybe I'll be able to shove him aside elsewhere. And this is how overruns are handled, right? You get a good odds result. You don't have to worry too much. You can just do a quicker attack, and it's not going to cost you anything. It actually gives you speed in terms of your action. All right. So our ratio, if I recall correctly, is going to be 3 to 1. Let's see if I can remember everything. 3 to 1. 3 to 1 gives me a +2. Where do we have our whole list here? Tactical modifier. That looks like 2 to 1. I got artillery in this thing? Cool. So I actually am at 4. That can't be. Cav has artillery? I mean, horse artillery, sure. It just seems strange to me, but it is. Okay. So I'm actually a 4 to 1, which puts me at +3. Let's use this because this is the rebels. +3. Tactical modifier. I get another +1. I'm 1 better than him. That puts me up to +4. Did I forget some of this stuff? Flank attack. Prepared attack. No. This is, I believe, a hasty attack. So we're down to +3. Doesn't really matter who gets the bonuses in each case. Column of route. If unit in panic is in effect. So I've got +3 to the attacker die roll. And that gets me a net of +3. The defender has 1 strength point. He'll be taking a route. So +3, right? Is that right? Or was I at +2? No, I'm at +3 net. That's why. They rolled the same amount. And here I think I'm at 3. I'll get a D, which is disorganized and fatigued, but I do get to advance the hex. Okay, so we have a disorder for each. No, not demoralized, disorder. Because there's 2 counters, so both sides are disordered or disorganized. The route. And we're not going to play this slowly in the main game, but I do want to capture the things I'm doing. It's a little different from Lee versus Grant. And retreat all 4 hexes. Must end 4 hexes. Now there was a fatigue to the disorder result though too. So D is disordered fatigue. It gets another level. No, it goes all the way to fatigue 4. Wow, combat's dangerous. I mean, whatever. Okay. And I run 4 hexes, 1, 2, 3, 4. I might as well go all the way up there. These guys also had a DA. So they've been reduced, and they also hit fatigue 4. And that's as far as they're going. And they're going to both have to rest after this. We didn't run through any zones or anything, so nothing special with that route. Now Jackson has moved up. He's used 3 of his movement points. He still has 2 left, which means I could conceivably do some kind of super fast attack on here, but I don't think that's going to happen. I believe that Cav is going to try to eat up my movement points, because otherwise it's probably dead. And we did this already, but I don't remember it terribly well. So combat value is less than 1. I get a -4 to the retreat die roll. That's a 0. Now, I think the penalty is only before modification and halving. Yeah, so you got to roll a natural 1 to get hurt. And the Cav, now I believe, makes a 4-hex retreat. And I don't remember what happens. But I'm not costing any movement points. Retreat 4 hexes, and its fatigue level goes up by 2. So I'll be getting a fatigue 3 on that. Sorry, fatigue 4 on that Cav. 1, 2, 3, 4. That goes all the way up. This didn't cost anything. There was no attack, so I don't get a free movement. So with my 2 additional movement points, I can move up to here. And now I got to consider whether or not I want to do a march column attack on him. Because I've got a big numerical advantage. I've got Jackson, who's good in tactics with me. I got a lot of advantages to punching through. But there is a stream in the way, and there would be the -3 for just slamming into the enemy on a march. Jackson, man, yeah, he's going in. Let's see what we got here. So, he's got 18 strength points. Remember, this is where the counters don't quite work. I got 4 extra strength points for the artillery that kind of don't count against me for casualties. So I'm at 22. The defender is at 4. That gives me 5 to 1. That's probably a +4. Yep. It's a fairly simple chart to remember. Tactical modifier. Jackson's a special leader. Well, he's a core leader. He gives me a 5-point core bonus on attack. Banks, who doesn't seem too bad at all, gives me a 3. So Jackson gets 2 more points in his advantage. I forgot to mark these down. I've got nothing left to attack with. No flank. This is a column of route attack, so I go down to +3. And Union Panic's not in effect. What is in effect, however, is the defenders across the creek. It's not a rain turn, so that's +1 on the Union side. Essentially, since we're only worried about the difference, I'm just going to drop this down to a +2 bonus total. And here's the problem. The attacker is attacking with a big 18 strength point force, which means he's likely to take some casualties that he wouldn't take otherwise. We don't both roll ones. I was at +2, so I end up at -1. All right. Banks has 4 strength points at -1. He's going to get a little F. That's a fatigue level for Banks. That sounds pretty good, you know. And you're attacked at 4 to 1. Okay, now here, oh, you know what we forgot? Oh, we forget everything. We forgot that Williams has 2 points of artillery, so we weren't actually at 5 to 1. We were at 6 to 22. Which means we were actually a little worse. Instead of 5 to 1, we're looking at, sounds like 3 to 1 actually. So that fatigue level does not happen. Get that back. And Jackson screwed up. Oops. Okay, so I think we're at -3 instead. And we go here on the 18 table, and that's a 2 and demoralized, disorganized. This is not good for the Confederates. The disorganized, and I don't know if those add up correctly. Demoralized, and the fatigue off a D That was 2 levels of fatigue. Nope, they just shoot up to 4. So Jackson got hammered there. We got the disorganized, and we take 2 casualties. And we'll do that by replacing the 4 of this 18. Oh, son of a bitch. I do not like these kind of trays. Mainly because you can't use them one-handed. I got counters flying off the board now. I'm just used to reaching in. The fact that it's clear does not make it at all easy on me. These are the Avalon Hill, I guess, used these too, but these were mainly Victory Games things, and they look really cool, but they're nowhere near as good as the ones that you can remain open. Now, I know a lot of people didn't like these because I have no idea where all my plastic covers are. If you don't store them in the game with the plastic cover, you lose the plastic covers, and I got a pile of them in Phoenix, you know, if I ever need them. These are better if you know the game has to be stored in them. But now I got to resort my counters. Great. That's even less pleasant than it looked. Amazing how much that little action, you know, sent counters just not all outside of the box for the most part. One I found, I knew I saw one fly off the counter. It was actually under the table. It like must have bounced off. I, of course, always have a garbage pile. I mean, well, not just one. I have these little piles. It's somewhat believable here or understandable here. I don't have lots of my furniture, but I also don't have a good solution for furniture here. The bookshelves that I have aren't going to fit up in the loft, so, and this is my main, this is where I store my war games. I'm going to have to come up with other solutions. This is, you know, I mean, this is half my games, right? What I got set up here. I'll be able to move some of this shit downstairs, I guess, but I really like my war games being, or all my games really being up where I like to hang out and play my games. Anyway, one of the counters bounced off their shit and got under the table. Maybe more fell out. I couldn't find any more. All right, but where are we? The Union cannot, I had to check this, they can't even do a core attack here because their fatigue's already 2. That would charge them another fatigue. I kind of want to keep this guy here and entrench him there. Give me a last-ditch place of defense. I've done a really good thing. I moved some of my cav around Buford over here to help cover this road. The roads are really key. And whoever the hell this is, 1 main, 1 hex over. He could have entrenched here, and maybe that would be cool. But it's not like he does a whole hell of a lot. Zones of control are kind of sticky in this, but an entrenched 1-point unit doesn't do much. A cav unit in position to kill some movement points might actually prevent something from happening. So we're all moved. Now, hey, we're almost done with the turn. We go to the recovery phase. You know, we're not going to worry about the supply phase. So for recovery, we flip through all the combat rolls. Okay, anything at fatigue level 0 can build bridges or entrench. Not rickets, but we are allowed to entrench Crawford, who didn't move. Okay. All units at fatigue 1 or more will lose 2 fatigue points unless they're out of supply. And any units that recover down to fatigue 0 after that, which have demoralized, get them back. Now, but what happens to our, there we go. I missed this. And any with disorganized strength markers have their, any units that are down to fatigue level 0 with disorganized strength markers after they get reduced will have their strength markers flipped to organization side, which means the guys at fatigue 4 are not going to recover. And they're going to kind of have to sit there. This puts Jackson at something of a position in which he might get smashed back. Far enough away that he's just got no chance. I also had to keep track of casualties. I put the 2 Confederate casualties that were gotten from that combat. I think those are the only casualties I've gotten throughout the game. There's no place to really record casualties in this Unlikely versus Grant where there's a track for that. Nothing like that here. All right, so why don't we do some of these? These guys have nothing wrong with them, so we can just take their fatigue 2 markers off. All these guys. I don't have to think about them. How big a deal is the, fiddly level of this? I don't know, man. Buford didn't take casualties. This guy didn't. This guy might. He did not get disorganized. Excellent. Okay, now I got some 2-pointers. So this goes down to 2. It's not at 0, so it's not going to recover. Same thing here. Not at 0, it's not going to recover. So basically everything that got hurt is still hurt. And the hurt is just disorganized, but this is a speed scenario, and that's not good. And I think that's it. Push to August 9th. I got through a whole turn. It's more than I thought I would do. I might come back and do another one, but I doubt it. I'll get through it tonight. But yeah, I mean, you can see I just have to get motivated to do things, and that'll be the start of the next turn. Things aren't going too well for the Confederates here. Not only did Jackson's attack fail, but it moved Winder up here, and I should have actually switched Jackson over there, but I was kind of worried about him getting attacked. I could do a core movement and have done this. In fact, I think that's what I would have done in this, but only moved the 1 core. Anyway, let's move that, just because I would have done that if the attack succeeded. What happened was I moved up next to Buford's cav. Buford's cav was kind of strong. He wiped out all my movement on my second attempt to move this force and ran away. And that means I'm not going to be able to dislodge Pope easily. With Pope not being dislodged, that means First Corps is probably going to get down in this area and get between me and Culpeper. The forces entrenching at Culpeper, fine, whatever. They're probably not too important because enough of the Union forces are getting in the Confederates' way. And remember, these guys up here, they can't really get beyond here. I think it's the 0924. This is the box. So they can't really exert any pressure except to get across this river if I was doing an outflank from that direction, which maybe looks wiser at this point, but who knows? I mean, the Union could reposition very easily. It's very easy to put yourself in someone's way. It's hard to put yourself in their way in a manner which really stops them. So the larger Confederate forces could knock Pope out of the way pretty easily right now, except these guys are disorganized. It might be worth making an attack with them anyway. It's hard to tell. Just to get across the stream before more Union troops get in my way. I know it's very hard to force a stream once it's well defended. I don't know. Gotten ourselves Augur's waiting here. He's going to entrench there. He could move up to reinforce Pope. Pope's not very strong here, but I feel like defending a strong point in front of here. First Corps all over here. I think Ricketts is in there somewhere, maybe here. It's hard to tell anything with all these fatigue markers on top, even who owns what. That's why those markers really should be player colored. It looks like it's going to be really tough to push my way through to Culpeper. Now, if the Confederates want, they could do something as well. Not this. But I've got Ewell there, who's got a fairly big force. He could perhaps, well, he could certainly move into here and hit Pope. With a good movement allowance, we might be able to get a decent attack without penalties. I would have some flanking bonus from this. How much? Probably just +1 because I'm only going to be covering 4, not 5 of his hexes with zone of control. These guys are disorganized. That's not that big a deal because they're my secondary force. They're not actually directly involved in the combat. What I can't do is I can't do a core movement with both these units and this maybe and launch a combined attack on Pope. I'd have to move up first and then launch the attack. That much telegraphing, maybe that hex would get better filled. Maybe other things would happen. So I have to decide how important it is for me to bump Pope off that river streamline. Now, if I'm cutting that stream, it's only a stream. It's only a 1-point penalty, the same as my flanking bonus. I'm going to be raising my fatigue level, which means if I do get disorganized, and I probably will from combat anyway, but if I do get disorganized, I might not be capable next turn. That might not be a healthy force. It may be disorganized. And that's a potential problem because the vast majority of the Army of the Virginia is a little behind, and not force marching because I don't think the streamline's that important. It's just slightly valuable. I don't know. Let's see who gets the initiative. I don't know how much that matters. The Confederates get the initiative. I got to make that decision. I'm a violent kind of guy. I got Jackson here. Let's see if he can punch his way through. So, Nick Ewell's roll, and he's going to take Jackson with him. This may be a pretty exciting part of the battle. He's got +1 because he's Confederate now. You know, I've got the core leader here. I think I can do core activation instead, which probably gives me an additional +1 just because I got the core leader in. And I haven't really been paying attention to that you can steal. This is regular movement. Where the fuck? Activate core leader is +2. So I can grab 5 movement points here because Jackson's in range. And I can only take that. And moving overland. Yuck, yuck, yuck. What was that? Clear as 3. So I got 2 for the attack. 2 for an attack in infantry. Ah, jeez, and I keep forgetting about this. The defender's artillery is doubled in that clear terrain. 2 for an attack is going to be a normal attack, so I don't have a modifier on that. So let's figure out what my total modifiers are. I don't know what they are. I have 14 strength points. Banks has 8 strength points. That's just 1-to-1. I don't think there are any 3-to-2s or anything on here. And 1-to-1 is just 0. Yep. So we get nothing from that. Tactical modifier, Jackson versus Banks is +2. A flank attack bonus brings us to +3. This is not a core assault action. So we're at +3. And we'll be going up to fatigue 3 after this movement. I think it's after. plus 3, 8 to 3, that's going to give us plus 5. We need to see what we got here. Plus 5 at 4. That's a 2DR. That's going to hurt. And over here at plus 5, whoa, E, what? End action, okay. And I'm up at 12. That's going to be an end action, but an advance. Okay, so I'm taking 2 with the disorganized fatigue and a rout on Pope's force. And we didn't roll both ones, so there's no danger there. So he's going to fall back and not be in good shape. And remember to mark these down. I need all my hands because there's a lot of strength point moving and everything. The system has a lot of fiddliness going on, which makes it more difficult to video. The casualties in the hit. We also got a demoralized marker, which makes us worse. It cuts the artillery out of the play. So that was kind of successful. I don't think anything else wants to actually go because I want to increase entrenchments in all these areas. The Confederates have this. I will get at least a 1. We'll move Lawton the 1 hex further he can go. I don't see any harm to that. I'm trying to keep things at fatigue 2 because that was a forced march or an extended march. I forgot to roll a die on that. This will be Confederate. 5 or a 6. I would have taken a D level, which would have sucked. I did not get it. That would have given me a disorganized hit. Just flips the unit over to disorganized. That would have changed the odds a little bit. And maybe we wouldn't have gotten the result we did, but we got away with it. I should have rolled that before I launched the attack. And now we're at the end turn cleanup. And we got to be kind of careful here. The sequence is actually pretty important for this. If I can find it. First, the fatigue 0 units get to entrench and then build bridges. Then we deal with fatigue reduction and remove demoralized from the units that are demoralized. And should this be fatigue 4 on a route? Something tells me maybe. Yeah, because I got a disorganized fatigue, so I'm up to fatigue 4 automatically. So that's not going to recover quickly. These armies don't quickly get ready for another round of action. Other than all these fatigue markers, I think I like the way the combat and the effects of combat kind of work in this better than they do in Lee versus Grant. There's some really clever things, most of which have carried over to this game from Lee versus Grant, but this feels like, especially for early war, the late war, maybe Lee versus Grant is capturing something a little bit better, but it really feels like it degenerates into a trench warfare type situation. Or maybe not trench warfare, but into a defensive benefits get too strong. You may not have seen that in my game because I figured out a way to outflank that maybe wasn't that wise. That's something that I got here that's kind of complicated and kind of annoying. So breastworks, technically you should have fatigue markers on top and breastwork markers on top of every unit that has those things. I'm used to, in Lee versus Grant, being able to just like, oh yeah, this unit has this modifier on it, and everything in the stack has it if it's below that marker. The problem with that is, here you've got 2 different markers. So this guy's got breastworks, and he's digging in to entrenchment, but this guy had a fatigue. I had him under him, but he's not actually in that fort, but the units in the fort aren't under the fatigue marker. This is really a little more difficult to figure out where you're going to get your shortcuts in terms of some of the mechanical operations. Luckily, I was able to remember, what my situation was. But anyway, that captured, I think, all the entrenchments. I had one back here that's under that fatigue marker, but that's going to go away in a moment. And disorganized units, not this stack or this stack, but say this stack, get to recover now. So as we go into the third turn, the Confederates have a big enough force that maybe they can get a little closer to Culpeper. What are we aiming for? I don't remember. So, in order to win, we need to get it to 3 or 4, which really means 4 or 5 hexes from Culpeper. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, we're kind of there. So, honestly, if we could hold this position, we would get kind of a marginal victory. I'm not going to settle for that. I'm going to push further, but that's just to give you kind of an idea of where we are. The burden of the attack is now kind of on the Union, but the Confederates might want to push a little harder and see if they can get further. We'll see. Maybe they just try to take the marginal victory and see what happens to the Union, and maybe are able to, take a Union attack and then roll it back forward. The Union's been so busy about entrenching on the road to Culpeper, not really paying as much attention to the victory conditions as they should. It's always a problem. I take my eye off the ball, I used to close my eyes when I was in the batting cage. I was really, or not in the batting cage, but in Little League, I was really good at getting hit by the ball. It was my best way of getting on base, mainly because I just closed my eyes and tried to swing at it. Okay, as we move into the third turn, moved my leader, moved Pope a little bit, just because these badly fatigued guys probably aren't going to be doing much, which means I won't be moving Pope into a position where his only real effect, the grand assault or whatever, would be possible. He's not likely to be managing that. Confederates, do they really need to push forward? I don't know. One thing that's interesting about this design is I probably am going to be passing initiatives and trying to force the Union to do things until they screw up, and then push forward if need be. But if I lose a hex or something, then maybe I have problems. One thing about this design that's a little different, or has some significant difference between it and Lee versus Grant. In Lee versus Grant, I can expend a fatigue to entrench, essentially. Actually, it's more like 2 fatigue, right? And with no option to push it out to 4, if you put it in the terms of this game. But there's nothing like that. I can't speed up the entrenchment possibilities. The only way to entrench in this is sit still somewhere. So nobody's going to achieve better defensive positions, and that's kind of important. On the last turn of the game, you're like, oh, now it's time to dig in and hold my position. Nah, it's not going to happen. It's opened up with a big attack. Remember, he's the big 18 strength point unit against Jackson here. Wasn't able to get to 2-1. Jackson's tactical ability was enough. He took the big D result, a couple casualties. Of course, shifts the victory point situation a little bit more in the Confederates' favor. Takes a little bit more pressure off them. It's going to be really hard to throw the Confederates back. So the Union's been getting the initiative each time. And they can't afford to pass because the Confederates can just win the game if they say, okay, that's fine. Most of the Union forces seem to be cavalry, not in strength points, but in terms of the pieces that are out on the board. Or a couple of smaller units that are in place that, hey, maybe provide me with some ability to prevent a Confederate counterattack from taking place. This is kind of interesting if you picture a kind of the Cedar Mountain battlefield area. You've got units that aren't advancing, that are standing in defensive position to prevent a further push through. The scale of this, they call it operational. It's a very, very low scale operational. It's almost at the grand tactical scale, where you could actually, an actual battlefield seems to take more than 1 hex. see if they've got scale here. I'm sure they've got it written, yeah. Each hex is about 2,000 yards, 1.15 miles. There are maps that, you know, cover more than a couple of miles, so it's not like a hex or two is the extent of your tactical battle area, which means you get to kind of come very close into that battle and see what's going on in it. It's a nice scale for showing both the context around the battles and the battles themselves. That's very neat. Anyway, the first corps is moving up into place to try to make an assault too. I don't know how effective that's going to be. It'll have a support, but the problem is Jackson's so good, and as long as I leave him there, it's going to be pretty tough. Unless I'm misreading artillery, which I saw a hint that maybe I am. But as far as I can tell from these rules, all they do is add strength to the combat value. And the big bonus of them is that they don't affect your losses. You know, there's strength without additional risk. Anyway, by attempting this, maybe I'll get an attack here. Maybe I'll be able to get some sort of grand assault or something. I don't know. Of course, that 4 strength unit is not going to be involved in a grand assault. Union is gathering up. There's all first corps there. Oh, there's another piece there that I could have moved. However, I was actually considering trying to do an outflank with that. Jackson jumps back with a corps movement. He only picks one of his units, his hill back here, and moves forward. Now, that's one of the interesting things here. You can keep doing these corps movements with just one of your pieces, and that gets you an extra movement point. It's basically, hey, if you got your corps commander anywhere right near the action, he can give you a little boost. It's a nice feature, but the way it's kind of explained, the way it's worded, etc., it feels almost like you're doing something wrong in doing it, like bending some intention. I don't think that's the case. I think this is how it's intended. All right, so let's do another battle, I guess. We've got 16 plus 4 is 20 strength points against this hex. And this fatigue marker's to remind me that Jackson's got a point of fatigue from the action here. So it was 20 here. We got 11. Oh, fuck. This is clear terrain, so the artillery's doubled for the defender. 11, 17, and 6 is 23. So we're actually below 1 to 1. Now, we've spent enough movement points to get an extra, to get a normal attack, because we've got to bust through this too if we keep going. And the Union's already committed to trying to attack this hex. So if we can push to there, supply doesn't matter, nothing like that matters. We're just getting closer to Culpeper. What I read online is people think Culpeper usually falls to the Confederates. I may have blundered a little bit with them. The Union may have gotten a little more in the way of actions early than they should have. They certainly have been winning the rolls more, but it has not felt like it's been easily within reach in this game, and I'm kind of regretting this fort here and the breastworks here, right? Okay, so we were at 1 to 2. That's going to be a -1 on the Confederates. I'll give that as a plus to the Union. We keep looking. Tactical modifier. Well, it's good old Jackson with his 5. We get to pick the best here. That's going to be a 2. So Jackson goes down to 3 -1, puts me to +2. Flank attack bonus, there is not one in this situation. And we've got a normal attack, so no bonus there. So we're looking at a +2 on the Confederate roll. That gets us to a 0. And now we got to look at what the actual troop strength is without the artillery. And geez, its defense value. Ooh, it says not including entrenchment benefits. Maybe it does include the artillery. That would be goofy. Let me look this up. I may have been misplaying it. What it's not is overall manpower, I think, which is kind of weird. You'd think a lot of milling around disorganized guys would take more damage. column corresponding to his attack value, defense value, prior to entrenchments. So yeah, so I think your artillery actually counts into your damage that you take, which I thought it didn't. So artillery is kind of weird. Artillery is a boost to your strength, but so we were talking about like the 23 column here. That's going to be a 1D for the Union, and this is kind of difficult to deal with. As I've said before, I got to mark the loss over here. I got to remember to take that 1 there, and then for the Confederates, we were around 20. That looks like a 2D for the Confederates. I think we had 20, including the artillery. Yes. So this was not a good result for either. And they're both going to be knocked out to fatigue 4. Some of the Union already was. And I'll take the casualties. We didn't roll double ones. This one's going to go kind of long, but I don't want to break it into 2. What we've got here now is Fort Jackson's command really only, not Hill, Ewell is capable of doing anything of significance. Remember, these guys are out of the battle, basically. We got 8 strength points here. Can't get very far through that cav, though. So we might swing Winder back around and see if he can bash his way through. For the Union, the capability of that grand assault, well, fatigue 4s aren't going to be doing anything, but I do have units back here and here that I could bring into play. These guys are demoralized. That reduces their attack value. I don't know that they'd be very useful adding to the combat. I do wish that the casualties were based on the total manpower in the hex, not... It's kind of strangely worded, actually. Numbered results which precede the letter results indicate a reduction of the unit's manpower, not artillery, fine. But it's based on... if I can find it, the attacker cross-references with the column corresponding to his attack value. The defender corresponds to the result to his defense value, which includes the artillery and doesn't include the milling about manpower. I think I kind of question that. To me, it seems like the artillery wouldn't really increase your own losses. I thought, it would. It would increase. If anything, I think kind of like Der Weltkrieg, it should increase the opponent's losses. The guy who's getting shot by it. But also, I kind of thought that the total manpower in the hex should indicate the casualties. If you've got an overstacked hex, you'd take more casualties. But what am I to know? People play tested the hell out of this, I'm sure. Back in the Avalon Hill era, I think a fair amount went into things. We'll see if the system changes a little bit as you go further along, because maybe my misconceptions get applied, maybe other people's misconceptions got applied. I don't know. Okay, well, I don't have a lot of hope here, but the Union's gathered up, gotten in action. I'm going to declare a corps assault. Now, in order to succeed in this, we choose the corps leader. The units in his hex get to participate. Then we have to check command level, basically. Now, the fatigue goes up anyway, but hold on. Command level here is... It's Siegel. I believe the second number is command, I hope. I don't know. Yeah, second number is command level. So he has a 3 to succeed in this. I don't know what happens if he fails. I hope one unit doesn't have to attack. He succeeds. Now, I can up this to a grand assault because I got Pope with me, which means I have to roll a 4 or less to take this to a grand assault. And that's important because I got units in there that can enter. And the fatigue marker fell off the unit that it's on. These stacks are getting a little big. I could see going to those, but I don't really like using off-map boxes if I can help it. Pope fails. That means the core has to still attack. Now, I had like a 1-to-1 if I got away with this. And I think, hey, maybe, maybe I could gain that hex and gain a victory level or something. But that's not what looks like it's going to happen. So I got to recalculate the odds. It's not going to be pleasant. 21 to 34, that gets me a -1 for the odds number. Tactical modifier, yeah, I'm sure this is going to be great. I got Siegel with a 2, I think. I don't think that... Yeah, core leaders tend to be a little better. To Jackson's 4, so that's -2. So now I'm at -3. I get a flank attack bonus, though. I've got 5 of the hexes covered, but there's an exit, so that I think is +2. Where was I at? So that gets me to -1. There's a core assault, so that gets me to 0. And we're in good. Nowhere near as bad as I thought it would be. And I've a smaller force on the attack, so that might be good. Except I end up on the -4, which is not going to hurt the defender at all. And we were at around 21 or so. That's going to be a 4D on the attacker, and that ain't good. Interesting decision on what to make with your where to take your strength point losses. If you take them off small units and wipe those units out, that makes your kind of attacking power on a single unit and such not kind of nice and powerful. Of course, you can always do the core assault if you can set that up. The disadvantage to doing that is you lose the artillery associated with those forces. So if you're on a more defensive position and you don't need, even if you do need to move around, if you're planning on being on a more defensive position, I think it's important to keep your individual units in some sort of capability so that you can attack. I don't know where we're going now. That should be fatigue 4 on top of all of this. I should only have one of those markers in this whole stack. I think I took the other one out. The Union casualties, which are 5 higher than the Confederates, in conjunction with everything else, that ends up being a 5-point swing in victory conditions. The distance from Culpeper, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hexes, that's 3 more victory points. That gets us to the 8-point victory. This is a Confederate decisive victory. The Confederates have the option to do something. Now, obviously, as part of a campaign or something, maybe I'd want to push this further. But as this little snapshot, I don't know that I particularly want to. And honestly, I don't think the Union can do much more. I'm going to call this here. I'm looking at the odds. If I could set up a core attack on here, I could probably push this to 4 hexes, but the victory points are the same. Maybe if I'm really successful, I could get closer to Culpeper. But I'm already at the top of the chart. As far as I'm concerned, I don't see a way that the Union can win this game. And I want to get to the main game rather than keep playing this out. I've already gone well over the video time. This is kind of a toy scenario, and honestly, all the basic game scenarios probably are. That's not to say they're completely uninteresting. This does seem to have, some neat factors to it. I do have to agree, though, I didn't take Culpeper with the Confederates, but the Confederates still got their decisive victory. So I think this one's a tough road for the Union to win. All right, let's load this up, and I'll begin the setup of really the grand campaign for this, because There's two campaign scenarios, and one's a little longer. One's twice the size of the other, and as far as I'm concerned, that's what the game really is. The scenarios, yeah, they're good for learning the system a little bit, but I want to see how it plays out in the broader scope. So let's send this up.